Hi, this is Robbie with Untitled Photography. I've been kind of in a creative, abstract, artistic mood the last couple weeks, and tonight's no exception. I had an idea just a little while ago to take a picture of my eyeball with a macro lens, so the eye is basically the entire image, and then in Photoshop to change the shape of the pupil into a heart. So it's kind of lovestruck or love at first sight, just kind of some kind of image that will convey emotion. So should be fairly simple. You can use my A77 with a 100mm macro lens, just right at my eyeball, probably f16 or so I have some depth of field to play with, cable release, and just blast away. Alien B with a big beauty dish so that my flash can recycle quickly. Also, I'm going to have almost all the lights in my place on, along with the modeling light bright, so my pupil will be fairly small, and that will give me more leeway when I want to replace it with a black silhouette of a heart or a black shape of a heart in the middle of the eyeball. So, should be pretty quick, and then we'll go into Photoshop and actually apply the technique. So, first things first, get my camera ready. Have a 100mm macro, we're going to put on manual focus, close 1:1, and start blasting off shots. I'll move the light down a little bit so I can kind of see it. It should affect my pupil dilation. So I have Alien B at close to half power. I have my radio trigger plugged into the sync port, so I'll be able to look at the LCD screen. Manual focus, because we're dealing with macro, it's a lot easier that way. I'm going to need to control the reflection. I want to try and put the reflection of the beauty dish in the middle of my eye, so I have a lot of iris to work with, so I don't have to clone out as much. I'm still getting a lot of reflection of the beauty dish. It's almost covering half of one of my eyeballs, so I'm going to adjust its positioning. I'm going to put it further away so its effective size in the reflection of my eye will be smaller. And I'll put it right behind the camera. But because of the inverse square law, we need a lot more power. Alright, I think I have something that works. Now I just need to find the right focus, and then I'm going to adjust positioning, see exactly how I want to compose this. Go blind doing this. Alright, I might have something that works. I wish I had a woman here with a beautiful face and beautiful eyes that I could photograph. I think that would be a little bit better. But I only have myself to work with, so we'll see how this turns out. Off to Photoshop. So this is the image that we're going to be creating. It's a little bit surreal, it's a little bit unnerving, but it's my interpretation of Lovestruck. So let's go see how we did it. Here were all the images that I took of my eyeball, various lighting conditions, and this is the one that I decided to work with. The specular highlight from the beauty dish is right in the middle of my eye, so it'll be easy to remove. My iris is in focus. A slight reflection of my eyelid, but this will work. So let's go take this into Photoshop and we'll get started. Alright, so now we're into Photoshop. We'll need a black layer. We're going to duplicate this layer, and now we can create our heart. We're going to use a shape, the heart shape, just because it's easy right there. So right about in the middle of the eye, I'm going to hold down Control while we make it. Drop our opacity so we can place it properly. So something like that. My eye is not looking directly straight on, so I'm going to do a quick free transform. We'll do a slight distort, just to try and get this pretty close to even on all sides. Okay, that's looking pretty close to even, about the same amount of distance. on both of these sides, same amount of distance here and here. It's close, it's not perfect, but it'll work for right now. So say OK. I'm going to hold down Control and click on our shape, which selects it. Then we're going to use that in our layer mask. So now we have our heart that's replacing our pupil. And actually for this layer, I want the layer mask entirely black. And I'll do that because we're going to paint in pieces of the iris around the edges in a little while. So now we want to add a blending mode, and our first one is going to be an inner shadow. So with our inner shadow, we're going to adjust quite a few things. I want this to be a soft light. Going to increase our opacity a little bit. Going to turn off global light, make our angle 170 degrees. Distance is fine, choke is fine, size we want substantially bigger. 76. We want to change this to a Gaussian, which is this one, and we'll turn on anti-aliasing. Our next is going to be an outer glow, and here we're going to do a linear burn. Opacity will turn down quite a bit, and we're also going to change our color. This we want a blue color to kind of match my eyes. C0, C0, FC. Want to change our technique to precise, our spread to 34%, and our size to 0. We're also going to change this to Gaussian, anti-aliasing on, range 77, and jitters 61. So this is pretty subtle, but it will stack with the other ones and be pretty cool. All of these should be fairly subtle in their appearance. So here we want a hard light, turn off global light, set our angle to 42, our opacity is going to be 24, want 7 pixels, and our spread at 6%, and our size at 60. Here we're going to change our contour to sawtooth and turn up noise to 50%. So all of those are now coming into play, but you still can't really see some of them. So we're going to turn up our feather on this layer, and then we're actually going to paint in some of the stuff beneath it. So now we're going to come to our layer mask at the bottom, and we're going to paint back in some of the eyeball, and it should allow some of our blending modes to seep through. So start with a pretty light brush at first. This should help give our heart some depth, so it's just not so abrupt. And now you can see some of our blending modes. Alright, so that's looking kind of interesting. There are a few more steps we want to do. First, my face has too much color to it. I want to really highlight the blue in my eyes. So we'll do that by creating an adjustment layer, and we'll remove or desaturate most of my face. Something like that I like. Going to use the layer mask that comes with the adjustment layer. Turn this up. And then paint back in the color to my eye. But everything else remains desaturated. So I like that. And also, we have quite a bit of depth of field here. My eyebrow is a little bit out of focus, but I want to blur most of this picture. So let's duplicate this layer just so we can do this non-destructively if we need to come back to it. We're going to go up to some of the new blurring methods. We'll do a field blur. So we'll drop this pin right in the middle of the eyeball, and we'll set it to 0. That should protect the eyeball while the rest of the picture gets blurry. So now we'll drop some pins around that will blur things up. And some of these will be able to increase the blur. There we go. So that's drawing a lot more attention to this eyeball in perfect focus while the rest is pretty much blurring out, which is what we want because it's not that important to our picture. So now we'll say OK to this. And I think our draft is pretty much done. To really finish this, I would go through and I would really refine the layer mask to make this heart perfect. Right now it's not quite there, but you're getting the idea. It's close. And here you'll be able to see the difference that the adjustment layers make. They help define the shape that we were trying to create. They're not necessary, but they do help. So I hope this inspires you to go out and create a surreal, somewhat artistic image. You'd be surprised the subject matter can sometimes be right in front of your eye, or in this case, is your eye. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Otherwise, like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.